Hallo meine Lieben, herzlich willkommen zu einer verspäteten Folge des Winzer Talks. Die letzten Wochen waren sehr, sehr ereignisreich bei mir. Bin viel herumgereist, war viel in Italien, aber auch viel in Frankreich. Meine letzte Reise war in Verona, südlich des Gardasees, Wald Tennessee, und habe dort einige Roséweine probieren dürfen. Und heute ist quasi die Basis auch wieder Verona, allerdings ein bisschen nördlicher, und dort ist kein Roséweingebiet wie am Gardasee, sondern Amarone. Ja, Amarone, wir haben noch nie über Amarone hier gesprochen auf dem Podcast, was eigentlich sehr, sehr schade ist, weil es ist einer der spannendsten Weine aus Italien, wie ich finde. Ein Wein, der auch schon eine sehr, sehr lange Geschichte hat und definitiv anders ist als ein normaler Wein. Und was diesen Wein von einem normalen Stillwein unterscheidet und was ihn so besonders macht, das werden wir heute hier im Podcast beleuchten. Anlässlich des 250-jährigen Jubiläums vom Weingut Masi ist mit Sicherheit ein Begriff. Eines der geschichtsträchtigsten und wichtigsten Weingüter in Italien, wenn es um Amarone geht, aber auch grundsätzlich, wenn es um Wein überhaupt geht. Und mit dabei ist heute Raffaele Boscaini. Und wir sitzen in der Maximilianstraße in München, die teuerste Straße in München. Und diese Folge wird in Englisch sein. Deshalb möchte ich euch jetzt bitten, euch kurz sprachlich umzustellen. Wir haben ja schon ein paar Mal hier eine englische Folge auch gehabt, wenn ihr euch zurückerinnert an die Folge mit Craig Lambrecht, dem Erfinder von Coravin, was ein sehr, sehr gutes Gespräch war. Dann dürfte das normalerweise kein Problem sein. Herzlich willkommen zum Winzer Talk. Ich bin Daniel Bayer und das ist der Podcast zur Website wein-verstehen.de. Raffaele, thank you for being here.
Hi.
Did you just arrive to Munich today?
Yeah, just half an hour ago. Basically, I'm coming from Switzerland, from Zurich, where we have another Masi Wine Bar, and where I did as well there a 250 celebration last night.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a big deal for you. So you celebrated in all your bars?
Of course, in all our bars, but even in all our main markets. We are doing a sort of road show between myself, my sister, my father, and my cousin. So you understand that we are a big family now.
Yes, so before we talk about the family and about the vineyard, I want to talk about you. Maybe you introduce yourself.
Yes, I am Raffaele Boscaini. As said, I'm a proud member of the family, and I represent the seventh generation having this beautiful business that is wine. In my generation, my occupation at the winery is to taking care of the marketing and being a sort of coordinator of all the technical stuff. Where I'm not a technician, I'm not an enologist, but I have in mind the recipe of the wines from Masi, especially in terms of style, in terms of characterization and recognizability, which for us is very, very important.
Yes. So we have a little bit of background noises here in the wine bar. I think it's really nice because it gives a little bit of atmosphere.
Of course.
Right here. So how long do you have this wine bar here in Munich?
We opened just after the pandemic, so in June last year, 2021. And so far it's a little bit more than a year that is open, and we are very happy because of the beautiful town of Munich that I love personally, but everybody, at least in northern Italy, love Munich. There's a sort of seems to be a sort of brotherhood between our two towns, Verona and Munich. And I'm happy because I have the chance to talk to our consumer, our passionate consumer that find our brands all over in 140 countries in the world. But here they can have the product and the the environment in which the product has grown. So we brought here a little piece of Verona, a little piece of our winery, in order to do a sort of surround around the wine. That is basically the goal of what we call the project Masi Wine Experience. We want to give to the consumer not just the product, but all the passion that we share making the product, the heritage that we bring with us through 7 generations, the landscapes of our place, the smells of our cellar, and all this emotion of this beautiful business, which is the wine business.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about you are the 7th generation. So the winery has a really huge history right now. And especially for Italy, for the northern part of Italy, you're super popular, not only in Italy, but around the world. For me, it's very interesting how you got to the point where you are today.
How we get to the point where we are today? I mean, for sure, working, and with a lot of passion. Then, after that, I have to say, with even an intelligent vision on what we want to be, what we want to express. For example, you already mentioned before in your introduction the Amarone as the king of the wine of our land, our region, and of our estate as well. Amarone, until 30 years ago, let's say 40 years ago, was totally unknown all over the world. Just in Valpolicella, we were drinking our own Amarone just on Christmas and Easter. Was really a rare wine, and I mean, well considered by ourselves, but totally unknown out of the world. And so, the being convinced that is something unique, that is something that really deserve to be known abroad, we made a lot of travel in this way. My father especially, which by the way is not a coincidence, is called Mr. Amarone, so means something. Has been traveling with his bottle of Amarone all over the world to make understand is. Without saying it's better or worse than other wines, it's totally different. Mm-hmm. And what it is Amarone. You just taste a sip before, and it's something that doesn't come every day. If you taste a nice Chardonnay, a nice Cabernet, or other Merlot, they reflect the terroir, the different the wineries and so on. But it's Cabernet and Merlot. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to say it's always the same, but Amarone drive you in a totally different atmosphere, totally different emotions on your mouth and so on.
Yes, and I mean, Amarone is so special because it's really unique. You only find Amarone in Valpolicella. That's where it comes from, and that's how it all developed. And it's a special technique. So maybe we can talk about what is Amarone for all the people who heard the first time, who cannot really imagine about the production steps and everything.
Correct.
Maybe you can explain this.
Yeah, with pleasure. So Amarone, as you said correctly, is a unique wine for several reasons. First of all, the area where we are allowed to produce Amarone is the Valpolicella, so meaning this hillside area, which is a little bit north from Verona. And Verona itself is, I always say, is midway from Venice and the Dolomites. So, just north of Verona, in the Valpolicella area, there are the last hills that are the last pieces of Dolomites, and then start a flatland up until Venice. So in this hillside area, which is in one way protected by the Dolomites on the back, from the cold wind coming from Germany.
From Austria.
From Austria. Just joking, of course. And this particular situation is a beautiful area for growing vineyards. Moreover, there's the largest lake in Italy, which is Lake Garda, that provide a milder climate because it's very deep, keeping the temperature during even the winter. So we never have snow, for example, in Valpolicella, or at least if we have it, lasts for one day, no more than that. But it's really a specific and a very peculiar combination of climate condition. And this is one story, the geography and how it makes. Then we need to have 3 grape varieties that grows mainly there, just there. And there are Corvina / Corvinone. They are very similar, but the taste profile is the same. Then there's the Rondinella, and then the Molinara. So all the 3 of these variety plays a fundamental role into the blend of the Amarone. Corvina normally is between 65 to 80% into the blend. So you can imagine brings the core to the wine, so the most of the elements, which is we can describe with one word, with cherry flavor. Then the second variety, Rondinella, between 15 to 20% in the blend. I have to be honest, it's not really pleasant if you eat on its own, but brings structure to the wine. So the more tannic part, which is a little bit bitter, not really great fruitiness, color, yes, a lot of color. And then there's another variety called Molinara, which is the lightest, even in color, is semi-transparent. And Molinara has got an interesting role. Is weak, is correct, doesn't bring color, as I said, but brings nice acidity and some spiciness, like a little bit of pepper, which combines very well with the wine. So to make a nice comparison with music, I always say Corvina is like to have a piano. You can have a concert of just piano, it's beautiful, but then you can help this piano with some drum from the Rondinella. And would you ever have a concert of a drum? A little bit boring, right? Mm-hmm. So, but combined with the piano is good. And the Molinara can be the triangle, just for the little touches here and there. So the orchestra is done. Third way to make Amarone, you need to have this grape, but not from fresh. So you grow in the vineyards, of course, everything. Then you harvest them, and then you crush. No, you don't crush. You leave the grapes for 3 up until 4 months on some bamboo cane trays to dry. So this long, slow drying process allows some water to evaporate. Around 35 to 40% of the original weight of water is lost, and so you have a concentration of everything is in the berry. Of course, the sugars, the aromas, the acidity, all the elements that after they will make wine are concentrated. And so you have a thicker juice to be fermented and processed to make a wine. This thicker juice provides a lot of sugar, as I said, in the long time during the winter, because by the end of the drying period, we are in January. After that, start this fermentation that takes place for nearly a month in order to transform all the sugars in alcohol. That's why Amarone is quite alcoholic, is 14.5, 15, 16 in alcohol, and is really more thick, more dense. The viscosity is different, and the wine is what it is. So a wine totally different. The aroma itself of the for example, of the Corvina that I referred before, like cherry, become more like cooked cherry. And then you feel the alcohol that, first of all, alcohol being so volatile can brought through your nose more aromas. So it's a totally different sensation in having a wine. With this characteristic, then Amarone can really last in your cellar for a long, long time.
So basically, we have 4 grape varieties. The most important is Corvina and Corvinone, and also Rondinella and Molinara. So these names are very interesting for a German, so I try to pronounce it right. So basically, these 4 grape varieties are like the ingredients for this recipe. We try to make a Amarone. It's a blend. So first of all, Amarone is not a single grape variety, it is a blend. So, and you just say, okay, what do we need for this blend? Do we need a little bit of acidity, a little bit of structure, a little bit of floral notes, or these cherry notes? And you bring this all together. And this is actually this part when you need a really good winemaker with a lot of experience and a lot of tradition, history, because you know exactly from which place, which grape variety brings what you need for this recipe. And then when you have all these grapes, these grape varieties, you don't press it immediately, you dry them.
Correct.
So, and for this process, you have like these bamboo mates, and this is very important. So, to have this traditional, historical bamboo mates.
Yeah, basically, it is something that need to allow the grapes to be exposed to the air at its best. Mm-hmm. So, bamboo canes are, of course, shaped round, and the berries are round. So when the contact point is very thin, basically it's like the grape is almost suspended of air, right? And where is not touching anything is air, and air go through, do the job of drying. Mm-hmm. If you don't have this condition, and for example, you have too compact the grape and so on, the air doesn't go through, and instead of drying, you get mold.
Yes.
And of course, you don't want it.
No, because then you get a disease or a fungal or something like that.
Correct.
And that's what we don't want. We want healthy berries. Absolutely. And once they are dried and really concentrated, you press them really slow. I think it's very important to make this slow and
of course, absolutely
gentle.
Absolutely, being gentle. Even because technically speaking, there are the stalk in between the berries, and this one after 4 months or 3 months of drying, it got dry itself, and so very fragile, it can break easily and go into the fermentation vat. We don't want it.
Nope.
Otherwise, can give bitterness or oily flavor, green notes, and so on. So. So why we use a distemmer, a giant one, going very slowly in order to have a precise way to separate the two elements.
Exactly. And then we go into the fermentation process, really slow, really nice. The wine takes its time so that the sugar can be transformed into alcohol. And we land around at 14, 15, 16%, which is very usual for Amarone. And then we go into the barrels.
Correct, to the barrels. And here comes, I would say, the style of the winery. Barrels are those places where the wine, finally after this long time of fermentation, of drying and so on, need to rest. To settle down, to let's say mix well together all these new characteristics, these aromas, the balancing of tannins and acidity, the aromatics that need to mix and match together very well, and this need to be stored into a barrel. But barrels are made in wood, and there's nothing else than wood that allows a micro oxygenation natural through the fiber of the wood. But wood as well give flavor to the wine. Do we want it or we don't want it? That is the sensibility of the winery or the winemaker. At Masi, we want to have the effect of the wood rather than the flavor of the wood. That's why I always say to our technician, use the barrique or the barrel as a chef should use salt and pepper. So never as an ingredient, but just to smooth the angle or to, let's say, give power to some flavors that are characteristic of the element of the wine in this case. So that's our, as I said before, a sort of tradition of the family or recipe of the family. Mm-hmm. This trick of being cautious, having cautiousness in using wood or barrique.
Yes. And then you get a really authentic wine.
I want to express the flavor of the grapes, of the terroir and so on.
Exactly. Yeah, you just stress what the grapes bring, what the terroir brings.
Correct.
And with this barrel, you help the wine to give a little bit of structure, to make it, to increase the potential of aging, which is also really, really important. And then you talked about the styles of Amarone. So you have like a Riserva.
Yes.
For example, how long do you put this into the barrels?
So the Riserva has got, first of all, a longer drying time, so even more concentrate. and in barrel a little bit more than the regular Amarone, even because in the Riserva Costasera we put another varieties, which is called Oseletta, a very rare variety, having very small berries and a lot of tannins. This variety acts into the blend as a sort of backbone, so very firm, very very tannic, and very concentrated. Helps this wine Riserva to be very, let's say, like a general of the army, very straight and very, always proud and so on, giving proudness to the Amarone. And of course, in this case, we have even longer time of aging, because all the strato need to be, need to be smoothed down, smooth a little bit the angles, otherwise can be a little bit rough, and we don't want it.
Yes. So this is really important. We talked about this process of making a Amarone, use the Appassimento technique, and you also have the ripasso technique. Maybe we can talk about this.
Yeah, ripasso technique is definitely a very interesting things. Is an ancient technique, has been conceived by my grandpa Guido, together with his enologist at the time, Nino Franceschetti, and was a smart way to have a more powerful wine rather than Valpolicella, but not that powerful as an Amarone. So the ideal midway. So in the 60s, basically, you had the everyday drinking Valpolicella that was 11.5, 12 degrees in alcohol, or either you have a 15 degree alcohol wine like Amarone that, as I said, you used to drink at Christmas and Easter and no more. So I always say, my grandfather need to have a wine for the Sundays. And so he created that. Why? In a very smart way, using some residual sugars, aromas, and color left from the Amarone. So when in January you crush the grape to make the Amarone, after the fermentation of Amarone, you still have the skins, the pomace, still with some sugar, still warm from the recent fermentation, and with some color, some tannins. So he used to pour the Valpolicella just made a couple of months or 3 months before, and thanks to these residual things into the skins, start a second fermentation, having one more degree in alcohol than the regular Valpolicella, some color, some tannins, and new aromas. This was the ripasso that my grandfather invented when he created Campofiorin, which is the other flagship wine from Masi out of Costasera Amarone. Mm-hmm. Then soon in the 80s, my father understood the limit of this technique. So it's unpredictable what you have left over from the Amarone. From one vat you can have some sugar, from another less, or different things. So he decided to move to what we call now double fermentation, which is a better refined method that instead of using the discard of Amarone are using some dried grapes unfermented just for that. So nowadays our Campofiorin is made with Corvina Rondinelle Molinara crushed and vinified fresh. Then 20% gets dried. And on this dried portion, you have a second fermentation. Mm-hmm. And so that is the thing. So it's quite complicated, but
it sounds complicated, but I think it's easier to drink it.
Yeah,
I just recommend you guys to open up a bottle and
you don't have to know how to make it, just make it.
Yeah, very interesting techniques, very special, very unique, and definitely worth to try it. So while we are talking, I sip around at my glass and taste the Amarone. Maybe you can just explain us what do we have in the glass right now, which wine?
Yeah, in the glass right now we have the Costasera Amarone 2016 vintage, which has been a very good one. And by the way, saying a very good one vintage, what does it mean? Normally for everybody means a nice growing season that brings you beautiful fruit with a nice sugar concentration, means like perfect ripeness and everything that will develop into the wine aromas and flavors that are nice. But in Valpolicella is different. We need to wait. So we have a double season, the growing season and even the Appassimento season. So if you, for example, have in October and November when the grapes should dry, very humid with fog, rain and so on, the grapes doesn't dry or dry in not a good way, or maybe get attached by mold. So is not a good vintage for us. That's why I would say that nearly one every decade we lose one vintage or two vintages of Amarone. Then, of course, with the fresh grape, you keep doing your good wine with your good Valpolicella or Campofiori. Nevertheless, it's always there. But it's something that for the industries that are related to agriculture, it's pretty much normal. We are used to this kind of unpredictability of the things happens. Anyhow, good vintage, and this is the Classico Amarone from Masi. A Classico means coming from the original area of the Valpolicella. We have Valpolicella Classico and Valpolicella. One is Classico, is the smallest area within the whole Valpolicella, where everything began in the past. Here we have the three varieties, the four varieties as said before. Around 100 days of drying of this grape, and then of course the fermentation that happens in our cellars. So with Costasera you have a great example of Amarone, because is the Amarone, as we call the modern style of Amarone. So an Amarone that is totally contemporary style, means with no any kind of oxidation and nothing. It's very rich. You smell just from the beginning, and in the first sip you have the idea, you get a little bit confused. It seems to be sweet. This is not the sweetness, is glycerin that comes during the drying of the grapes, thanks to some botrytis that affect the Corvina grape. This smoothness is the responsible of the great drinkability of the Amarone. So a wine with this level of acidity, this level of tannins, and this level of alcohol is quite hard, but it's gentle. Mm-hmm. That's why I like to call him gentle giant. Costasera is our gentle giant. That is, it is very smooth and gentle when you first sip, and then you feel the warmth, you feel the volume and everything. That really, to me, is beautiful.
I know exactly what you mean. And this glycerin is something you can see when you swirl the wine.
Correct.
In the glass.
This viscosity that...
yes, we call it Kirchenfenster in Germany, when you see like these little tears coming down from the wine glass. And this is always also a sign for high alcohol in wine.
Correct. Yeah.
So, yeah, don't be afraid of the alcohol in that wine, because it gives the body to the wine. Yeah. It's very important. And it's really nice because I like the complexity of this wine. On the one hand, you have like this smoky notes, almost like a little bit of meat when you have it in your mouth and in on your nose, but also compared with like this really compact dense fruit of cherry, of fig, or plums, dark berries, and also like this little bit of tobacco note.
Tobacco, correct, and cocoa powder to me. Some, yeah.
That's
not
also
chocolate, but cocoa powder, right?
I like that.
Yeah. That is once again, even the cocoa powder is bitter, but it's sweet.
Yes. Yes.
Together at the same time, yeah.
Yeah, it tastes sweet without being sweet.
Yeah.
Which is sweet.
Yeah, of course,
this is really nice. And yeah, you also have a long sensation in your mouth.
Yeah, of course.
And it's not a wine with a lot of tannin, with a lot of acidity. It's really nice to drink.
That's why, to me, Costasera is even relatively easy to pair with food because of this characteristic. Is gentle, is round on its own, doesn't have this, let's say, spikes of acidity or tannins. So you're not seeking for something particular.
Yes.
I mean, if you have a very tannic wine, you need something fatty, and it's not the case. So you can pair with many things, and And why not even after your I don't know roast meat that you have with this, you still have some wine in the bottle, and you can go even after dinner with a chunk of Parmesan, some walnut to the fireplace, talking, and it's beautiful. You can sip slowly like a port or like a digestive, right?
The gentle giant.
The gentle giant.
I like that phrase. It's really nice and it's catchy. Yeah,
absolutely.
The gentle giant, guys. Yeah, you really have to taste Amarone. I recommend the wines from Masi. They are really, really good. They have a long tradition. They have a lot of experience. And they have a wine bar in Munich.
Correct.
Which is not too far. Yeah, I think the Munich people, especially from Bavaria, really like the wines from Italy.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's Alto Adige or like the wines from Verona, Lecada, or from Amarone, Piedmont.
Yeah.
The northern part of Italy is so beautiful. I'm there like at least 10 times a year just to visit.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And for me, Amarone is really you have to be there. You have to feel this terroir, this landscape, the food, the wines. It's really, really nice.
And we have another Masi Wine Bar within 1 hour estate that we have in Lazise on Lecada. And then one more, which is quite unusual, on the ski slopes of Cortina d'Ampezzo on the Tofana. We have this Masi Wine Bar over there as well.
Wonderful. Yes, and tonight you're going to open a very special wine.
Correct, yeah. We are in this celebration of 250th anniversary of 250 vintages of Masi. We are opening this special bottle of an Amarone called Vaio dei Masi, which is the original vineyards where, by the way, came the name of the winery. That has been prepared by my uncle Sergio back in 1997, and that has been preserved until today to be open to be enjoyed with our great friends here in Germany.
This is really an honor just for me to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. So you talked about 250 years of vintages.
Of course, yeah. In fact, I like to say more than years, vintages, because our life is underlined by vintage and vintage. But even because Vaio dei Masi, which is this vineyards, has been cultivated by ancient, was named Giobatta Boscaini back in 1772. He didn't own this place, but just rented from a family to have the possibility to have a crop of grapes to make wine. So that was the beginning. Then by luckiness or coincidence, he came the chance to have in his property this vineyard, because he married the owner of this vineyard, and still in our possession until nowadays, together with many other vineyards that through the 7th generation we had the chance and to purchase and to have for us. So we are celebrating then tonight more a sort of symbiosis within a family and its terroir. And the expression of this terroir, of course, we choose as the wine.
Very nice. So maybe just for the finish, I want to ask you a tricky question.
Okay, go ahead.
But I want an honest answer because you have the experience. So from these 250 years of vintages, what are the 3 best vintages?
The 3 best is not difficult because the 3 best vintages within the are for sure. One of the latest is the 16 that we just have in our glass now. Then before that, we are going in the previous centuries. In 1997, that was really fantastic, and now I can have some dispute with my father because he probably will answer something around I think was 78, but I was 8 years old, so I prefer 1990. 1990 is incredible because when it was just released, so talking about 95, he was excellent. He was 5-star rated and so on. But to me, nowadays, after 32 years, if you taste it, it's worth 7 stars. I mean, it's really, really incredible, the developing through the years of this wine. And by that, I have to underline even really the great capability to age of this wine and to become even, I don't want to say better, different with the different character and so on. That's why I did the same. I really invite you all to do these things to save bottle, for example, for your kids. I have a bottle from 2004 and 2008, the age of the vintage of my kids, and I'm sure that when they will be 18 or maybe graduate, they can open bottle of wine that grow with them. So It's a beautiful story.
Yeah, that's definitely a good investment.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So maybe just for the Finnish question, the last question, I want to know your thoughts about the current climate change. Mm-hmm. How you see that, or are you even have plans for the future? Are you doing something already?
I mean, as always, we know as an industry that we are always linked to climate and nature. Anyhow, we are always looking after that. So the climate change are evident and they are, as said, unpredictable. We had a very hot summer, like we had this past months, but we have some even no summer like in 2000 and when it was 14. We don't have a tall summer. So, of course, even if the trend is going on global warming, this is improved. Nevertheless, the effect into the vineyard are not so hard yet. We notice some things that need to be, let's say, fixed. Such, for example, we now grow the vines on the hillside in the pergola system, so covered by leaf to make some shadow on the cluster on the branches in order to not to have a sunburn. Mm-hmm. Then, of course, we have even keep the soil with grass in order to not evaporate too much water. Some things that so far are very manageable. But of course, everything must be done looking forward to what could happen. We notice even going back in the history that has been in the centuries, some period much warmer than now. So nature is nature, and we have to adapt to nature rather than force nature to be in our style. So that is the thing.
May the fittest win. Yeah, it's important to fit to the nature, not just to be strong and just go with your head through the wall. Of course. You need just to adjust to what you have. Go with the nature, go with the flow, and then you will always make wines. I'm pretty sure about that, especially when you have such a long tradition and experience like you.
Perfect.
Yes, thank you for the interview. Thank you for having us here. We are really looking forward to taste this wine later. It's 800 euros a bottle.
Nearly, yes, yeah.
A little bit less or more, I don't know. Yeah, but it's still 800 euros, and it's a big honor for us to taste this wine.
It's a magnum, eh?
Fair enough.
Very good.
All right. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the interview. See you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Ja, Freunde, da sind wir wieder. Ich hoffe, ihr konntet dem folgen, was wir hier gerade erzählt haben über das Herstellungsverfahren dieses einzigartigen Weins, des Amarones, dieses Trocknungsprozesses mit diesen 4 Rebsorten aus den verschiedenen Zonen in Valpolicella. Falls ihr euch noch nicht genau sicher seid, ob ihr alles verstanden habt, dann könnt ihr gerne auf meinem Blog nochmal nachschauen. Es gibt einen umfangreichen Blogartikel über dieses Event heute, wo ich auch nochmal darauf eingehe, was es mit dem Appassimento-Verfahren und dem Ripasso-Verfahren auf sich hat. Corvina, Rondinella, diese ganzen Rebsorten einfach nochmal erklärt habe für euch. Ihr findet dort auch schöne Bilder, um das Ganze nochmal zu unterstreichen. Und ihr findet meine Weinbeschreibung zu diesem 800-Euro-Wein, den wir heute probieren. In diesem Sinne, bis zum nächsten Mal. Cheers.
Schön, dass du dabei warst. Wenn dir dieser Podcast gefallen hat, dann bewerte mich auf iTunes. Wenn du Fragen hast oder mehr Informationen zum Thema Wein suchst, dann schau auf meiner Website wein-verstehen.de vorbei. Bis zum nächsten Mal.